2, 1, maybe. Okay, we are live.
Hey, welcome everyone to the CEO group conversation. Victor has the first two questions and other people, the shadows, are going to verbalize them. Tracy, please go ahead.
Good morning and good evening to you all. On behalf of Victor, who couldn't attend, he said that progress in 4 out of 5 experiments equals success. I'd like to question this statement and would propose a different approach and mindset if we speak about experiments. He lists the issue and he says, given this discussion, I guess we did not reach our goal here, but still we've learned a lot. There are 4 strategies that are mentioned, and this is the real success. So I'd like us to change our approach in thinking about experiments. So failed experiments are the real success. When we reach the goal of the experiment, that's more like a failure as we can't learn from it. So the OKR is to have 5 experiments. The goal of each experiment is to learn. And if we've reached the OKRs, if we've learned in 5 different areas, if not, we've reached the stated goals of the 5 experiments. Can you speak to this, please?
Yeah, thanks. Maybe like success is a strange word because any experiment you run can kind of succeed or fail. On the other hand, I want us to have the goal for experiment speed to actually run the experiment, and then we can be ambivalent about the outcome. Like most of the experiments are not going to work. It would be kind of sad if we run 5 experiments and 4 of them is like, oh, it's way better than we're doing now. Like it meant we weren't doing really good at this point. Now, so I think it's a good outcome if it was an OKR. So if we run 70% of the experiments, that's a good outcome. In this case, we ran 80%, so great outcome. Now, calling it a success is maybe a bit too much on the nose, and it's maybe also a bit too confusing. So I'm open to different language. Maybe we've done them. We've done 4 out of 5, and therefore it's great, or something like that. But when I talked with Todd was a bit like, oh, only one of them was had a positive outcome. And I'm like, no, like the goal was to run them, not to have to see them succeed. We should keep an open mind about that. Does that make sense, Tracy?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Michael's going to verbalize the next question. And thanks, Victor, for putting these on.
Yes, so things I'm thinking about. It's great to see this list. Thanks for sharing. Reading it, my initial question is, why are these topics important to you? What do you see in them for GitLab? Instead of making it reasoning myself, I'd like to ask you to let us know, why are you interested in these topics?
Yeah, thanks. I think one reason is that kind of this market is like, we have so much optionality to go into new markets. For example, with GitLab data, with single person groups, with monitoring APM, with real-time issue description editing. I think I'm super excited about the opportunity. Like we're in a $15 billion DevOps market, and now we can enter the AI market, and we can enter the monitoring market outside of DevOps. We can, through single person groups, run it, kind of have a taste of a lot more markets and see what works. With real-time issue description editing, we would no longer need Google Docs that we're using today in this meeting, but we could use our own product to collaborate. So that's why I'm excited about it. Awesome, Sherry, you're going to verbalize Jackie her question?
Yeah, so Jackie said, I like seeing the North Star KPI indication on our KPI page. What inspired that addition?
Well, from the current KPI page, it wasn't clear what like the most important KPI GitLab was. And at GitLab, we always use numbered lists, so we can easily point to something. They don't necessarily mean an ordering. So we figured we indicate that incremental IACV is our North Star. That's what we're running the company on. That is how we make decisions, and to kind of call that out as the one and only North Star for the company. Thanks, Josh.
Hi, Sid. I know during the eGroup offsite, you all read the book Extreme Ownership, and I was curious, what were, some of your biggest takeaways from reading that book?
Yeah, if there's any other eGroup members on the call, feel free to also add to my answer. I think it's a bit in the title, but never having a it's not my problem attitude. And I think at GitLab, we're doing a great job of that. However, due to our functional structure, it is very tempting to kind of think about, oh, I'm in marketing or in a certain part, and therefore I'm only responsible for that. But luckily, I've not seen that a lot. And I think what I'm seeing most of the time, that people think outside of their scope and their function, and elevate their thinking to what does the company need to achieve and what needs to happen for that. We did come on a tangential discussion about sometimes it's not clear who the DRI is for something. In that case, you need to speak up and say, look, I don't know, and we need to determine that. It's not okay to be a DRI bystander where you don't know who the DRI is. You assume that somebody else knows, and you assume it's not you. If there's nobody else who wants to add, then Mike, you have number 5.
I said I can add a little bit. This is Wendy.
Yeah, Wendy, please go ahead.
Yeah, a couple items that I took away from the book. One is Extreme Ownership talks a lot about the importance of prioritization. And I think here at GitLab, we do a really good job with setting our OKRs and our KPs and following that rigor. And that really helps us to measure results. So that was a positive from the book. A second positive was a lot of discussion around how leaders need to have humility and checking your ego at the door, so to speak. And I think here at GitLab, that is something that when I was going through the interview process, I found really intriguing, meeting the other eGroup members and how there was very low to no egos. And that's important as we lead a team. And that's something that's really unique. You don't always see that. So we had great discussions, on areas to improve as well as positives. So thanks.
Thanks for that, Wendy. Appreciate it. If there's somebody else, please interrupt me now or add yourself to the agenda. But otherwise, Mike Miranda has question number 5.
Hi, Sid. Yeah, I was looking at slide 15 and specifically KPI number 6, and I'm just curious why that percent of ramped rep at or above quota is a lagging indicator.
Yeah, that's a great question. And maybe it's not correct. I'm very open to that possibility. But the reason it is what it is now is that I think of closing a sale as kind of being a lagging indicator. So you have your pipeline, you have your activities, you have stage progression. Those are leading indicators. The closing of a deal is not the end point. After that, you make the customer successful and all these things. But in this KPI thing, it's more lagging than leading. For example, leading indicators are pipeline coverage, pipeline created, active users. Those tend to happen before the sale. Or are indicators that you're going to make more sales in the future. So that's the reason. What do you think, Mike?
No, I was just, yeah, that's interesting. More of a real-time thought is, I guess I just thought that might be a good predictor. That might be helpful in predicting some of those other indicators. So IACV, and if you have, reps at above ramped quota or the percentage is higher, that might be a good indicator predicting IACV or pipeline coverage, things like that. So I was just wondering what our thought process was around it.
IACV is lagging as well. Pipeline coverage is leading. I think one thought that comes to mind is that percentage of reps above quota is kind of an indicator for the quality of sales people you can hire in the future. Because if a lot of people are under quota, you just won't be able to hire and retain great people. So in that sense, it's a leading indicator. But I think we looked at it it was a bit more short term and kind of moved all the sales closing things as to the lagging indicators so for example, our quarterly results will be a lagging indicator of our success, not a leading one.
Cool, thanks.
Thank you. Christopher, monitoring.
Good morning, Sid. On slide 17, it talks about the monitoring with a Datadog agent. So in public sector, for the last 2 years, we generated a go-to-market strategy with AppDynamics around this kind of functionality. I was hoping you could talk about the Datadog partnership from your perspective and what your vision is around that.
Yeah, thanks. There is no Datadog partnership at this point. We're open to collaborating with anybody, but there's no partnership. And the Datadog agent is open source, so we don't need to partner in order to leverage that to make GitLab monitoring better. We haven't decided to do that yet, but we're exploring it.
Okay, thank you.
Cool, thanks. John?
Hey, Sid. I wanted to follow up a little bit on Victor's first question. As our team has been working a lot on those experimental OKRs, and while some of the results aren't what we had set out for ourselves, I do feel like our team has been learning a lot through this process. I was thinking one idea, or one way to kind of track the success, if you will, of these experimental OKRs would be to have, a label where we could see how many merge requests are being created as a result of the work on these OKRs. It would be similar in spirit to the CEO shadow label for merge requests, to see even if the key results aren't being achieved, if we're learning from those experiments and documenting things and creating, better processes for ourselves, that could be an important outcome, even if the, number of impressions or something like that aren't meeting what our expectations were.
Yeah, I think that's a really good remark. I think if you don't document, you end up running the same experiment a year later with the same results. So that might be a very good way to measure their success. That did we take the lessons of this and capture them? And that can be lessons like, don't do this anymore, but also yeah, there was something we didn't quite get there, but these might be other things we can try. I love the idea. I think you want a decision, either you can make it yourself, or since the experiments are mostly happening in marketing, will be something for Todd to opine on.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Cool.
Thanks. This was the public section.
Yeah, there's no more questions that can be public. I'll stop the live stream.